Welcome to the channel. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Join me on today's review where we'll be looking at a newly released watch from a brand which really needs no introduction, so I'll skip that whole part. Now, the watch that I am reviewing is the newly released Hammerhead from Zelos. I ordered mine a few weeks ago when the launch happened, and I ordered 3 different colors. They now have arrived, so I'm really looking forward to this review. So sit back and enjoy what comes next. So here we go. Welcome to the review for the newly released Zelos Hammerhead. The unboxing was in the intro. You know, everyone knows right about now how Zelos do their watches, so there's really no need for a detailed unboxing. Now, the watch is on my wrist. I went for 3 colors. I'll show you those colors later on, and this is what I'm going to be actually keeping. I love this crimson dial. Now, on wrist today, as well as the Hammerhead, I'm also wearing the Heimdallr Monster Homage. So let's go ahead, get into the review. Let's look at the first thing is price and dimensions. Now, you know, they released this second version of the Hammerhead, and Zelos made this one a little bit smaller, I think in terms of thickness, just to make it weigh a lot better. So dimensionally, we're looking at a 44mm diameter, and we're looking at a 48.8 lug to lug. We're also looking at a 15mm thickness. Now, on the Zelos website, the thickness on the watch is recorded as 13.5mm or 13mm, but it is mentioned without sapphire crystal. I don't like to not include the sapphire crystal because it is part of the watch, so the total thickness is 15mm. Now, the overall weight of the watch, as expected, it is a big watch. It is around 236 grams. So hefty watch, but you know, this is the whole character of the watch. Price wise, now as you guys are probably well aware, that when these were released, they are released at a cheaper price. So this was around £250 or around $350, which is an incredible value. And just on that part, you know, usually everything just sells out within 10 minutes. However, Zelos did produce so many models, and in fact the only one that ran out really quick was the burnt orange color variant. Now the rest of them stayed around for a good while, so I think there was plenty of time for people to actually get their watches in. Now, after the launch, the price goes up to £315 or $450, which isn't a great deal of an increase, but of course it's better if you get them on the launch. So as usual, stunning looks, really good build quality. And let's look at the specifications before we start looking at, you know, the closer details of this watch. So the case construction of the watch is of course 316L stainless steel. The bezel, crown, case back, full bracelet, everything is stainless steel. You've got a ceramic lumed bezel insert. You've got a double dome sapphire crystal with inner AR coating, and of course the watch runs the Seiko Epson NH35 movement, which is super reliable and super affordable. Now you've also got 300-meter water resistance. Let's take a closer look at all the stunning little features that Zelos have managed to pack into this Hammerhead. Now, to start off with the dial, of course you can see it's a sunburst crimson dial, or as it is known as a fume dial. Something new I learned recently. Now, what that fume dial does give you, it gives you this smoked appearance, and you've got a concentric gradient, so crimson in the center of the watch, and as it goes further out around the dial, it gets darker and darker to a black. Now, around that, you've got a white chapter ring, which is on the actual dial, printed of course, and you've got this Zelos logo at the 12 o'clock, which is applied Lume. Above the 6, you've got white text, which says Hammerhead 300 meters or 1000 foot. Above the 6 o'clock marker, you've got the date window. Now, it is color matched and it isn't, you know, it's with the black date wheel, of course, just to keep in with the darker coloration. But the center is, of course, red. So, you know, if they had gone with the red date wheel, would that have been a bit OTT? Who knows? Aside from that, you've got applied hour markers, a mixture between baton markers, and of course, these tapered hour markers at the 12, 3, and 9. Now, I like these big chunky block markers. Now, around the hour markers, you can see a highly polished frame, chamfered edges, which of course will give you some really nice light play, and backed up with that gorgeous fume dial, it gives you a really impressive and stunning visual aesthetic to the watch. Looking at the hands, you've got slightly chamfered and polished thick sword style hands, and if you look at the second hand, you've got a white tip similar to what we see on, for example, the Seiko Marine Master. You've got the traffic light tip, which is in full white. Pay attention to this slight ring around the dial on the case. multi-sided, I think it's 12-sided, and you saw this feature on the swordfish as well. Now around there you've got a ceramic bezel insert. Now Zelos have also applied a stainless steel bezel insert, but the three colors I have with me, they all have ceramic bezel inserts. So that is the teal and the vintage black. So you can see on the bezel insert, of course it is loomed, and you've got these markings which start around the 20, and you've got the small squares along with the batons as well, and then you've got this really nice guide for a 15-minute timescale, which actually just looks really well, goes well with the watch. Now let's quickly switch over to the other colors that I have just to see if they are different. So I'll bring you the teal first and foremost. That also has a ceramic bezel insert, but you can see it has a color matched 15-minute track. Of course, you've got a color matched tip on the seconds hand in blue, and you've also got blue text which says Hammerhead, and below that in white you got 300 meters, 1000 foot. You do have a blue date disc, which of course matches the color of the dial. The text is a bit of a funny one. Hammerhead obviously it doesn't merge with the dial, you really can't see that, but I don't know how picky people are wanting to see that. But in terms of the application of the hour markers, the hands, there is nothing really different. It is really good that Zelos really go the extra distance and, you know, make different color handsets, color date wheels, just to make sure the watch is complete, and they're not cutting corners by giving us, you know, generic parts, which they absolutely can do. Third variant that I went for was the vintage black. As you can see, obviously it is a dark brown dial. So this actually does remind me of, if you recall, when Rectangular bought at the Monster Homage, they had a dial very, very similar to this. Now on this, I think the color match is a lot better, or the contrast used is a bit better than the teal, because you've got a yellow, full yellow seconds hand, not just the tip. You also got Hammerhead in yellow, which of course is very visible on top of this brown black dial, and you do have a color matched date wheel. It actually is a shade of brown and not black, which is impressive. Now the main difference that you're going to see on this dial compared to the others is the fact is just looking at the outline of the hour markers and the hands, which is in black. So I think that's a nice touch, and of course again going back to, you know, Zelos or Elshan really putting attention to detail at the forefront when designing these watches. So I've done really well making each watch just individual, paying attention to detail, and ensuring that the quality is consistent across all of them. Now on the quality side, we're going to look at the bezel rotation amongst all three, the crown function across all three, just to make sure there's consistency present. But before that, let's have a look at the lume. Just check out the flipping lume on this Zelos Hammerhead. As with most Zeloses, it does not disappoint. You've got a mixture of C3X1 lume and BGW9. The C3X1 is applied to the dial, hour markers, hands, and of course that Z on the signed crown, which, may I add, is an incredible touch. It looks something really nice to look at, of course. And the BGW9 is around the chapter ring on the dial, and also the top half of that seconds hand. The BGW9 on the chapter ring isn't as bright or as long lasting as the C3 on the dial and ceramic bezel insert, and you know, it doesn't really glow for a long time compared to the C3X1. However, it's all good, very visible, and of course you can also see that Z logo below the 12, which is also loomed. One thing they are missing is the date wheel, which is not loomed on this watch. So let's check the bezel function. Now of course they are 120 click unidirectional bezels, very well made. Let's look at the finishing and the quality. Just look at this chunky grip that you get. It's kind of low profile as well. It isn't very thick, solid, stuck down really well. There's no play in the bezel, there's no movement in it, there's no back play, but I think that will lead to a very stiff movement. Let's go have a look. Okay, first alignment. Yes, it does have bang on alignment, but you know, it does have a very thick marker at the 12 o'clock, so it really can't be misaligned. The motion on the bezel, I don't really like it. I gotta say, it is a bit stiff. Maybe that can be improved by just, you know, wearing the watch in a bit more, breaking it in, I suppose. But as it stands, it's quite stiff, and I really don't like it, to be honest. Let's go ahead, let's check out the teal. A bit better, a bit looser, still a bit stiff. Alignment is good. Yeah, that is a lot better. And onto the vintage black. Yeah, again, a lot easier to rotate, a lot smoother, accurate. But you know, it isn't my preferred rotation. However, it is really good, works amazingly well. It's just stuck on this one. So consistency, I'd say overall it's okay. You might have just a stiff bezel. You know, out of the three I've got, one had one, so that's not too bad. Crown, let's look at the crown function. It is a very nice crown, great machining on there, thick, and also just look how it tucks in into the case. I really like that. 4 p.m. crown position, very, very nice. So, you know, it gives you crown guards without really having crown guards. So it's tucked in really well. Let's take that out. Good machining to it. The crown threads are pretty smooth. Date change. Alignment of the date is perfectly central. So yeah, good grip. You can have no issues with that. And functionally, it is a good watch. Just check the crown on this. Yeah, same story. You know, I always find it difficult to gauge, let's say, quality and function on just having a single piece, because people do sometimes assume that people are given, especially reviewers, are given selected watches. But you know, most time they're not. However, it is good to have a few versions of the watch, or you know, have a few of them watches just to see consistency, basically. So consistency is okay in terms of function on these watches. Absolutely spot on. Just like I said, the bezel might be a bit stiff if you get one, but on the others it seems absolutely fine. So out of the three that I have, I think my favorites are the vintage black, because of the black markers that you got present around the hour markers and the hands, and of course this gorgeous, gorgeous crimson dial. Let's look at the case and the build quality. So let's look at the case features. So you do have a very, you know, straight edged case. It's quite big, 44 millimeters times 48.8 in terms of lug width. By them making it just a bit thinner, it weighs a lot better. And I think, you know, they are using the right methodology when doing the dimensions. It is all about the lug to lug. As long as the lug to lug is in or around 47, 48 mil, you know, the diameter doesn't really matter. But what you do have is so many facets along the case. If you rotate that watch, you can just give you a better look. Just have a look at that. Now what you do have is two different finishes that I can see. So you've got circular brushing present on top along the A face of the watch. If you just rotate the watch around, you'll see two levels here, right? So, but this layer here is very, very smooth, almost like it's been sandblasted, but without the grainy texture. Super smooth, and you can't see any brushing. But the bottom half, it is a bit brighter, and then you've got linear brushing present. So a satin finish just on top of that, and then you've got this brushed finish down the bottom half. And I love that attention to detail. You know, you can make a very simple watch, but with Zelos, what they've done here is added just so many different layers, so many different features, and that is what is mind-blowing about the value for money factor on these watches. For £250, forget for 1 second that it has an NH35, because we now know they are very cheap. But just look at the finishing, the quality, the different features that you get. You know, this stainless steel ring does not need to be here, but they have put it in. You know, you've got a brushed ceramic bezel insert. You've got on the teal, you've got different color there. So there is a lot of thought and detailing, finishing gone into watches, and this is what separates watches. Going on into the hobby, you know, looking at AliExpress and micro brands, finish is a distinguishing factor between all of them, because you know, they are getting very, very competitive. The value for money is awesome on a lot of brands, so it's very hard to establish what's better. But for me, the finishing, the amount of detail gone into the actual watch, that is what makes it stand out. So the case is brilliant. Let's turn the watch around. So the finishing does not just stop on the A face of the watch. You've got a very, very well done case back. So look, what does it say here? Seiko movement. Okay, that's new. Putting the word Seiko on there. Sapphire crystal, 35 out of 300. So they are numbered. You've got Zelos Hammerhead 3, so the third version, 300 meters and water resistant. So you, of course, the logo, you've got two hammerhead shocks, highly polished, sort of satin finish on the background, very detailed case back, and really, really nice. But there is something else where I want to draw your attention to. Just look at the case back and look how that has been formed. So you can see how that has been machined in just to give you a much better and much slimmer profile. So have a look at that. The case back actually sits quite deep into the case, so that's how they've managed to make it a bit thinner. They've actually machined out quite a lot of the bulk that would have been on this watch. So I think that's a really nice touch. Side profile, you can also see how the curves of the lugs will make for a much better fit on the wrist. And on that point, let's move over to the bracelet. So you've got solid end links, solid links. You've got a milled clasp with a ratchet diving extension. But one of the nicest things about this bracelet is, of course, the style. It's this hex add type of style, fully brushed, very smooth finishing, screw-in links as well. So it is a very, very premium bracelet. Now let's focus on these end links here. You can see, just look how nice and well they have been placed in. Just look at the fit and finish. Awesome, awesome build quality from Zelos once again. But what you'll also notice is, yes, it does have male links, but just look how they come down, right? So they really shouldn't get in the way of, you know, putting this on your wrist. So they do slope down quite dramatically, which should give a really, really good articulation and good finish. That side profile is really substantial. It is really something, and it looks brilliant. So let's quickly go over the clasp. As mentioned, milled clasp, brushed along the top, Zelos in the center, very nice. It will catch a few scratches, but you know, notice that the whole watch, the whole bracelet is fully brushed to just minimize those micro scratches. And you've got double spring pushers here. Good function to the clasp. Now this is the ratchet extension, which is such a great touch. I mean, it doesn't seem the most solid extension, however it does work. So you've got this little switch here, just pull that down and it slides out just a touch to give you just a few mil. Now I am using this at the moment. I removed, I think, 3 links from each side, and you know, this ratchet extension really did help in actually just getting that perfect wrist size for me. Let's see the watch in action on the wrist. So, you know, the biggest concern that, you know, consumers or potential consumers of this watch are going to have is the size and what wrist does it fit. Now, I have a 6.5-inch wrist, and you know what? I think it fits my wrist bang on. I like to wear bigger watches, and as mentioned, it is all about the lug to lug distance. That is only 48.8, well below 50 mil, so that should fit fine. As you can see, it does look a bit big. Yes, diameter is a bit large. However, in terms of overall fit, I don't think it's too big for a 6.5-inch wrist. Of course, a 7-inch wrist, it'd fit it a lot better, or anything bigger. But you can see the case design, how well that does form around the wrist. It sits very comfortably. And what I will say about weight distribution, while the bracelet does a good enough job to distribute the weight evenly, it is a bit top heavy, so you will feel the head of the watch on your wrist. But you know, you don't get wrist fatigue or arm fatigue out of it. The watch is meant to be a big watch. It's in the name, Hammerhead. It's a bulky tool watch, very solid, but overall it looks awesome on the wrist. So as always, thank you everybody for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next video.